For 9 whole years on the sun-kissed coast of California, there was one show that served up love, rivalry, and revenge like absolutely no other: Santa Barbara. It was a soap opera that just completely broke the mold. But from the very first episode, it was a show that nobody could quite agree on. So when it debuted back in 1984, the New York Times called it good, trashy fun. They saw all this amazing dramatic potential in its totally over-the-top family feuds and social warfare. It really seemed like it was going to be a smash hit. But just a year later, People Weekly had let's say, a slightly different take. They suggested it could be the worst show on TV ever. Yikes. So what was the real story? Was it brilliant? Or was it just bizarre? To figure that out, we've got to unpack its entire journey.
Here's our plan. We'll start with what made Santa Barbara so different from everything else on TV. Then, we'll meet the rival families at its core. We'll look at the iconic super couples and wild stunts that define the show, uncover the turmoil that nearly sank it, and finally, discover how a show that struggled at home became this huge global sensation.
So, first up, what exactly set this show apart? Because right from the very beginning, it was crystal clear this wasn't your typical daytime drama. Santa Barbara was created by the husband and wife team Bridget and Jerome Dobson. And unlike all the other soaps at the time, which were kind of stuffy and very East Coast, this show was just drenched in California sunshine. It was faster, it was wittier, and it mixed the melodrama with this amazing dose of comedy and style that felt completely fresh. At the heart of any great soap opera is a great rivalry. And let me tell you, Santa Barbara had one of the best. On one side, you had the powerful and super polished Capwell family, and on the other, their chaotic, kind of eccentric rivals, the Lockridges, led by the incredible matriarch, Minx. Their bitter feud was the engine that powered the whole show in its early years. But it wasn't just about family feuds. The entire show was actually built around a single 5-year-old cold case, the murder of Channing Capwell Jr. Pretty much every single character on the show was accused of the crime at some point, creating this tangled web of suspicion that kept viewers guessing for years and years. Okay, now let's get to the fun stuff. The elements that truly made fans fall in love with the show, its unforgettable characters, and its completely bonkers plot lines. The show was a literal star-making machine. I mean, besides its beloved core cast like Marcy Walker and A. Martinez, it had an early career Robin Wright, years before she became a household name, and get this, a very young Leonardo DiCaprio got his start here playing the child version of Mason Capwell in flashbacks. How wild is that? But the undeniable soul of Santa Barbara was the epic romance between the wealthy heiress Eden Capwell and the principal detective Cruz Castillo. Their love story became a global sensation. They were the super couple that fans everywhere were rooting for. The show's quirky sense of humor is just the stuff of legend, and this moment illustrates it perfectly. In what might be the most bizarre death in TV history, a beloved character, a former nun named Mary, is up on the roof of the Capitol Hotel. She's arguing with someone when, of course, the giant neon C from the hotel sign comes loose and crushes her. It was shocking, it was tragic, and it was utterly hilarious all at the same time. Only on Santa Barbara. But for all its campy, surreal comedy, Santa Barbara was not afraid to get serious. It tackled a very controversial and deeply impactful storyline involving assault, where Eden discovers her attacker was her own gynecologist. It was a dark, really challenging plot that proved the series was capable of so much more than just quirky fun. So while the on-screen drama was totally captivating, the chaos happening behind the cameras was a whole other story, a story that directly threatened the show's future. The show's creative leadership was in constant flux. The original creators, the Dobsons, were forced out, then literally locked out of the studio, which led to a massive lawsuit. They did eventually return, but by then, a whole carousel of different head writers had taken the show in wildly different directions. And all that backstage turmoil had a real impact. After a brief peak in the late 80s, the US ratings just went into a freefall. By its final season, the numbers had dropped big time, and NBC affiliates actually started dropping the show from their schedules. And on top of the writing issues was the constant recasting. Key characters like C.C. Capwell and his daughter Kelly were played by up to 4 different actors over the show's run.
It's incredibly hard to build loyalty when your audience is constantly trying to figure out, wait, who is that playing Mason this week? It totally shatters the illusion. So, with declining ratings and all this backstage drama, you'd think that would be the end of the story. But you would be wrong. This is where the story gets really interesting. While it was struggling in America, Santa Barbara was exploding into a global phenomenon. We're talking airing in over 40 countries around the world. In places like France, it was a primetime ratings giant. And nowhere was its impact greater than in Russia. It was the very first American show to air there after the fall of the Soviet Union. It became a cultural touchstone. It ran for a decade and became synonymous with a whole new era. For an entire generation, Santa Barbara wasn't just a show, it was a window into another world. And here's the ultimate paradox. As its US ratings were falling, the show was at its creative peak, winning the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series 3 years in a row. Critics absolutely loved it, even if mainstream American audiences were tuning out. And it wasn't just those 3 big Emmy wins for Best Drama. All in all, the show racked up 24 Daytime Emmys, 18 Soap Opera Digest Awards, and a bunch more. The industry clearly adored it. And this is the crucial point. Santa Barbara was a show that was both a critical darling and a commercial disappointment in its home country, all at the exact same time. That leaves us with the central question of Santa Barbara's legacy. It was a soap with sunshine and shadows, a story of failure and phenomenal success. So how could a show so ahead of its time in humor and style struggle to find its footing at home, yet go on to conquer the world? It's a paradox that makes its story just as compelling as any of its on-screen dramas.